Hello everyone, it's Merlin here. So, I had the chance to watch the Fullmetal Alchemist live-action movie that came out in 2017 in Japan. Now, I have to say, when I saw the trailer about a year or so ago, I was actually kind of looking forward to it. I now realize that it was a very well done trailer. It didn't really show that much actual footage, just some shots of the landscape with some glimpses of Ed and Al and part of an action scene. I thought to myself, wow, it looks like they are really capturing the look of the anime at least. I appreciate that attention to detail. I was interested. Now, watching the trailer made me feel good. Watching the movie itself was a bit different. Adaptations can be problematic. Now, you can never really satisfy everyone. Anime hasn't really had the most success in gaining a wider audience over here, since most of it is both figuratively and often literally lost in translation. Western films like Fist of the North Star, Dragon Ball Evolution, and more recently Death Note, seem to have completely rushed or misinterpreted characters or plot points from the source material. North Star and Evolution in particular also were written with subpar acting and special effects. Perhaps the market is too niche, but big studios rarely seem to give the products the time, money, and effort to produce good or even fairly accurate recreations. FMA, like many before it, is a Japanese adaptation. I'll admit I don't really watch many of these. I don't want to be cynical and say that anime should just stay animated. I mean, look what great properties such as Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, or the Marvel movies, which are based on comic books and cartoons, have shown. It's possible to bring fantastical stories on screen and do them well. Then again, anime is usually pretty hyperactive, and many popular series do lack subtlety. I think one of the most appealing elements of FMA's success in the West is that the story is a bit more grounded in reality, with the story taking place in a fictionalized version of post-World War I Germany. Or World War II, it's a little bit vague. The historical settings and themes are a bit more familiar than with the average anime, so this is one of the few times where casting a Caucasian cast would not be impossible or completely unacceptable. It would actually be kind of appropriate. However, this is a Japanese film. I've noticed that there is less hate for Japanese live-action anime adaptations. I guess it's due to the productions being closer to the cultural representations than produced, since the anime it's based on is so close to them. Still, it doesn't change the fact that, at least in regards to this film and most others of its type, they aren't typically that good. I will say that there are certainly some positives. I really like this movie's costume design as well as the shooting locations. Someone did do a good job of taking the look of the visuals of the anime and manga and trying to bring them to life. I also thought that for the most part, the cinematography was actually pretty good. There were some awkward edits, but there are some good shots as well. The acting was a bit harder to judge, obviously, but it seemed to me that it ranged from pretty over the top to just kind of dull. I know that anime is typically over the top, and if they're emulating that, that's fine, but I feel like I've seen some really good acting in dramatic films for those particularly more dramatic moments. I also know that it seems like it's generally accepted with these types of films, I guess, but the non-practical effects, aka the CGI, ranged from okay to just kind of bad. The part when they try to transmute their mother early on results in some kind of laughable moments, unfortunately. And there are many like that, which come off as just being too silly and really undercutting some of the more dramatic points. This leads us to another issue common among condensing any show into a movie, and that's that they rush through a lot of stuff. Two of the most heart-wrenching moments from the show, Nina and Hughes, are so rushed over that the impact is nowhere near as strong as in either show, particularly in the 2003 one, which gave us much more time to get to know these characters and feel the impact of these events. The show does play around with the timeline, where some things happen at different points, and with different characters to save time, but not at the expense of including great moments only to make them so brief. Also, memorable characters such as Armstrong and Scar are basically absent from the movie entirely. I can kind of understand Armstrong, even though he is a fan favorite, but Scar is pretty important to the plot and the themes of both shows. Winry is also there for just about every major moment, even though she basically contributes nothing. She barely even does anything with the automail. Mustang also lacks the charisma of the series, where he was more fleshed out. He's really devoid of the humor and really any emotion at all until about the end of the movie. Hughes probably has the best actor in the movie, and he was one of the more fleshed out characters for the time he was there. His character seemed pretty much the same, although he doesn't have a daughter exactly in the same sense. His wife is pregnant in this one, which just seems like kind of a weird detail to remove. Al was also pretty accurate, although I question why they couldn't use more practical effects in some shots. It just looked kind of off. And him being mostly CGI just seems kind of unnecessary. since he doesn't really perform that much combat in the movie. Then comes Ed, who seems less intelligent and pompous than usual, but also does nothing throughout most of the film. Really, he spends major action scenes just standing there instead of being a badass alchemist. He's just not as brash as he normally is. The villains are also pretty underdeveloped. They lack the same dramatic build-up that can be applied to a lot of the other characters in this movie. Their costumes also weren't very good. I do have to say, though, the gluttony transformation led to the most amusing bad effect, or some really good cosplay depending on how you look at it. I guess that after viewing this, I can't really say that I was bored watching it. They did make their own story, so it's not super predictable. It's just that it includes so many of those iconic moments that are just so underdone, it kinda makes you wish they hadn't. Overall though, I feel like a good FMA movie can be done, but time and money really need to be put into a project by a studio with the power to do it. It's not just the limited effects, but the writing and the acting were really uneven too. I can't say I'm really surprised, but I am still a little disappointed, since I did see some real potential for greatness, which I know that FMA does have. Really though, I just think this movie, like a lot of other anime adaptations in live action, is kind of unnecessary. It's probably unfair for it to live up to a pretty fleshed out series, but I still feel like it could have been done better. Feel free to watch it, but don't take it too seriously. Do you guys know of any anime adaptations that are better than this one? If you do, please let me know. I'd like to see one. Alright everybody, stay magical.